It's the Payout Olympics. Facebook lights money on fire, Twilight makes an untimely resurrection, food holidays need a breath of fresh air, and true detectives become blood brothers, all in This Week Down the Rabbit Hole. Welcome to another edition of Down the Rabbit Hole, Volume 22. I'm your host, DT Critic, Master of Mayhem, Purveyor of Prevarication, and Arbiter of Amenities, not fit to print in the pages of a newspaper or broadcast over the airwaves. I find these stories, drag them here by the scruff of their neck, and beat them into submission until they are unrecognizable, and have a face only a mother could love. But enough about my erroneous literary linguistic talents. Let's get to the main event, shall we? Because that's why you're all here. Story number 1. Battle of the Payouts. Fox 1, Meta Nothing. Facebook's parent company, Meta Platforms, settled a class action lawsuit this week of $725 million. Whether to make a series of bad public actions disappear through the use of lawsuit magic, or to genuinely apologize for releasing all of its data to political platforms like Cambridge Analytica, one can only guess. One might be forgiven for suggesting, given the current value of Facebook sitting at just $500 billion, that it's the former, including no admission of guilt, rather than the latter. But given the company is run by a cyber nerd who apparently would rather have us live out the remainder of our existence online, his megalomaniacal tendencies might preclude apology telling. But if you thought Fox would be outdone by uber nerd Zucker and his drones, you would be sadly mistaken, as the Settlement Olympics concludes with Fox winning by a nose, and a $25 million nose at that. Fox apparently needed to be even more apologetic than the non-apologetic Facebook toward the Dominion voting systems company, as its hosts recklessly stretched the truth beyond all bounds of propriety about supposed hacking during the 2020 presidential election. Apparently, Fox couldn't convince the judge that their hosts were only stating hyperbole, like their candidate of choice, Donald Trump. So they promised Dominion $750 million I'm sorries to prevent their host and owner from having to take the stand. Whether Fox decides to beat itself in the Settlement Olympics with an even larger settlement to Smartmatic, only time will tell. But we here at Down the Rabbit Hole will wait with bated breath. Wait, squirrel! Story number 2, the best job in the universe. In other Facebook news, we have found that the parent company of Facebook, Meta, loves to throw money into a big pile and light it all on fire, as one of its former employees came out to talk about the job of recruiting she did for the company. Apparently, as a Facebook recruiter, you aren't required to actually recruit any staff for the first 6 months, or even the first year. And she was paid a whopping annual salary of 190,000 big ones a year for recruiting air. Not since the 1989 Taylor Swift album has one person been paid so much money for filling a room with blank space. We here at Down the Rabbit Hole wish to offer our CVV to get a job making 190,000 a year to produce our own Facebook show and call it Dead Air, as we will get paid to produce exactly that. Here's crossing our fingers we will get hired next week. Story number 3. Theon Greyjoy smiles from his grave as Twilight may be returning to a small screen near you. Once again, Hollywood proves that its storytellers have run out of stories to tell, copying itself ad infinitum. In the past, this meant they made a movie or television series and then would wait at least a couple of decades before returning to the well to do a remake. Now it appears they think about doing remakes all the damn time, as they prove that devolution is still possible in this world, and Darwin had it all wrong. It's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the fattest, as the fat cats in Hollywood and its now defunct Dream Factory are dreaming up their next small screen disaster. Call it Twilight 2: The Quickening. Okay, maybe that's not the real Twilight production title, but Twilight is set to eventually come to a small screen near you, as it's now officially a work in pre-production. Because, after all, we need even more sparkly vampires to grace our television sets, along with whiny young female teenagers. And then we need to lather ourselves in this wonderful work, all while remembering this 300-year-old vampire is going after a teenager. I don't care whether you were turned as a teenager or not, there's just something so unseemly about the whole thing. I get that women often date older men, but unless Webster's has also changed the meaning of older, there's something very wrong here. Whether wrong or not, a production company can't wait to grace us with even more sparkly vampires, crazy werewolves, and the hormonal teens who love them. Ooh boy. Story number 4. National food holidays need a change. I've been writing food holiday stories for almost as long as I've been blogging, or in this case, vlogging. And with those food holidays, I enjoyed celebrating whatever food I was talking about. Each food has its own special day, and we are proud to recognize National Garlic Day this past week on April 19th. There are so many delicious garlic foods out there, from garlic bread, to pizza, to pasta, and so much more. Garlic can be such an amazing complement to any dish. At the same time, we recognize that the day after April 19th, National Pot Day to some, Bad Breath Day to others, might be a bit taxing on everyone. And with bad breath going around, we think it might be better if April 20 added National Fresh Breath Day to its Pot Day lineup, or moving National Garlic Day to August 5th to pair it up with a National Fresh Breath Day later in the year. Because with half the people walking around with garlic breath and the other walking around with pot breath, kissing and intimacy will move to a standstill, and the world just might come to an end. It's the breath-pocalypse, and we are all invited. Now please go get yourself a breath mint, or you will kill us all. Story number 5. True detectives realize they are blood brothers as their mother's, father's, sister's, brother's, former spouse dishes all. In a world where truth is stranger than fiction and up is down, who could have possibly seen this story coming? We have had all kinds of blood brothers and guy movies all throughout the centuries, all of them having partners in crime. The Western Crew with Butch and Sundance, the comedy hijinks of Jay and Silent Bob, Woody and Buzz, Han and Chewie, and who couldn't forget the Jones boys, Henry and Indy. But now we have a new pair to grace our living rooms, Woody and... Woody? Okay, maybe that's a little misnomer, as it's really the coupling of Mr. Harrelson with Matthew McConaughey, who played David Wooderson in Dazed and Confused, in one of his most iconic roles. Most people remember the pair squaring off in True Detectives, and they're coming up with even more stories and shows that they can work on together, but this whole story takes a giant plot twist with the announcement that the pair may actually be real-life brothers. How it all works out would be very confusing, and possibly the screenwrite should be opted on it for Deliverance 2. No subtitles is the writing of this post. But it appears that in a conversation with Mr. McConaughey's mom, Woody found out that his mom knew his dad, and it was left open whether or not this was in the biblical sense. They're being really coy about it all because it's probably not true. But if you look at the two of them in pictures together and start looking at their facial features, you won't be able to unsee it. I, for one, know I can't, and you're welcome. So as life imitates art, imitates life goes, it's a wild story of two possible brothers who went to Hollywood only to find each other there. Whether this belongs in a Ripley's Believe It or Not episode, we will leave it for you to decide. And that's all she wrote. Another issue of This Week Down the Rabbit Hole, all bottled up for resale at the swap meet and hid behind the used underwear rack in the back of the lot. Please remember to subscribe. Then leave us your notes, comments, and threats in the comments section so that we at Down the Rabbit Hole can have a comment-birding s'mores party in our backyard tonight that lasts longer than 2 minutes. This is your host, DT Critic, signing off saying, before Facebook decides to light any other money on fire, they can ship some of their Monopoly money to me first. My college loan people will be grateful.